Out here in the fields of media where we work and we try and get it right and we work with facts, we are celebrating. We are celebrating the defeat of the administrative state, the defeat of dark money from the left. Ohio Issue 1, the 26-page effort by dark money, a lot of it from abroad, filtered through groups, was decisively repudiated by common sense Buckeyes even as they elected Bernie Moreno. So proud of my home state. I am also not indifferent to the suffering of the left, and I am not going to gloat until the very end. I am going to say, it'll be fine. We'll have future elections. Donald Trump is not a fascist. I've told you that all along. He is going to be a much better president than he was in the first term because he's better at it. He has 4 years doing it. And he's got a team around him, and he knows what to do, and he knows what to do and when to do it. I hope he sends David Friedman back to Israel. We need the Abraham Accords. We have to bring peace and stability back to that region. Prime Minister Netanyahu firing Yoav Gallant last night, little inside baseball for people who follow Israeli politics, major move. But Israel will have an ally for 4 years. And our Gulf Sunni allies will have an ally for 4 years. And the alliance will grow stronger. And NATO, step up or step out. We're going to absolutely require commitment. We have to help Taiwan defend itself against the Chinese Communist Party. And we have got all sorts of work to do with a new FBI director, a new attorney general, a new national security agency director, a new CIA director to counter the Chinese influence in this country. But a little look back. Jake Tapper last night when Donald Trump wins the Keystone State, cut number 7.
And we have a major projection. CNN projects that Donald Trump will win the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is a huge, huge achievement for Donald Trump and a huge bucket of electoral votes, 19 of them, for his path back to the presidency. As of right now, with those 19 electoral votes added from Pennsylvania, Donald Trump is within spitting distance of 270 electoral votes. He has 265 electoral votes. Vice President Kamala Harris has 187 electoral votes. 270 are needed to win. John King, Donald Trump is within a hair's breadth of being reelected president.
Well, he is president-elect. That was earlier in the evening. I want to make sure you understand. He has been reelected. 45 will be 47. And it is a rebuke to extremist rhetoric. It is a rebuke to a epistemic closure of left-wing media, that is legacy media that dominates certain networks. They will be hysterical today. Pay no attention. The world will be fine. John King on CNN. Stunning moment. Cut number 4.
The end of the campaign, when everyone was obsessed about why is he only talking to his base? Well, he was talking to those people, and they turned out, and he overperformed in a lot of Republican counties. Most of the places he overperformed dramatically. This is by 3%. You'll see suburbs where that'll be something we're talking about in the days and weeks after too, by 1 point or 1.5 points. This is 3% or more, right? So when you look at this, don't think about California yet. Let the votes be counted.
So these are all the counties where he overperformed by 3% or more.
Over his 2020 number by 3% or more. And right now we're over 1,000 counties and townships, mostly up here in New England. But
only 3,000 counties in America. In at least a third of them, he overperformed his 2020 number. John King also points out where Kamala overperformed, cut number 5.
Take me back to the places where Donald Trump is overperforming. Are there any places where Kamala Harris overperformed from where Biden did?
I'll show you that in just 1 second. I just want to put a button on what Pam was just talking about in the sense that, so there's votes out there. Maybe Kamala Harris comes back. And, that's close.
He's up by 11,000.
Yeah, right. So maybe she comes back. But, again, you're talking about the margins, right? He's winning by 4. Right? If she comes back and beats him, it's going to be 50-50, 51 right there. Again, underperforming the president in places. So you asked, are there any places that the vice president is overperforming Joe Biden in 2020? So we could show you that as well. We just bring that out here. Harris overperforming in 2020.
Holy smokes.
There you go. So let this go away and see if there's anything in the east side.
Nowhere. There isn't a county on the map that Kamala Harris performed better than Joe Biden. Nowhere. She's been rejected. Doesn't say anything about her. It says her policies were not articulated, and the American people want Donald Trump. Peace, prosperity, growth, and a future back. We don't have a call yet. It's 5:33 a.m. Eastern with this special broadcast of the Hugh Hewitt Show. And I have no way of knowing whether or not our candidates for the Senate are being our Republican candidates for the Senate in Pennsylvania, Dave McCormick; in Wisconsin, Eric Hovde; in Michigan, Mike Rogers; in Nevada, Sam Brown. I don't think Kerry Lake has won. I believe that's been called for Ruben Gallegos.
Actually, it hasn't been. Arizona is still coming in.
Okay, so we'll wait. But the point being, I want people to hear the Bernie Moreno acceptance speech, because Bernie Moreno, we'll bring you updates as they come, and Dwayne will be in a second. But Bernie Moreno he just ran a flawless campaign like Dave McCormick, and he gave an acceptance speech last night. Cut number one.
Look. Today starts a new wave. We talked about wanting a red wave. I think what we have tonight is a red, white, and blue wave in this country. Because what we need in the United States of America is leaders in Washington, D.C. that actually put the interests of American citizens above all else. We're tired of being treated like second-class citizens in our own country. We're tired of leaders that think we're garbage, and we're tired of being treated like garbage. My opponent talked a lot about helping the working man, and I will agree with him on the need to help working Americans. But the difference is talk without action is nothing. So what we're going to do, thanks to now having a Republican majority, by the way, how about that? In the United States Senate. And Chuck Schumer, if you're watching, thanks for the help in the primary, but you're fired, buddy. This is a new dawn of Republican leadership. With President Trump and J.D. Vance in the White House, we are going to advance an agenda that is an American agenda. An agenda that says we are pro-immigration, but not pro-invasion. We're going to make certain that the people who come to this country are invited here like I was, like my family was, on our terms. We're going to make this country an energy-dominant nation so that my kids do not grow up in a country where we ever rely on a foreign nation for energy ever again. And we have that energy right here in Ohio. That means coal, that means natural gas, it means oil, and it means nuclear. And in terms of EV mandates, they need to be gone first thing in January.
I am so happy he won. He's such a good candidate. Now, as I mentioned, Eric Hovde in Wisconsin, Mike Rogers in Michigan, Dave McCormick in Pennsylvania, all in the hunt. All looking good. Sam Brown has now moved ahead, and now I turn to Generalissimo. For those of you listening for the first time to the radio or to the podcast or to this segment, to this special broadcast, Dwayne has been my producer from day one of this show, which is in its 25th year. Adam joined a week later. Harley has been here for many years, so our team is tight. Dwayne does his own podcast called Dwayne's World, which will be, you've done a special one, I gather, already?
I taped one about midnight. As we knew the
Midnight
results.
California
time, 3 a.m.
Eastern.
Before we came to the studio for this show. And we've already it's already dropped. It's available at dwayne.world. You can link to Spotify and Apple and all the places you get pods. And the title of this episode is, I hate to tell you, I told you so.
Please tell me so.
But
I do not mind it.
But I told you so.
You told me so. I do not mind it.
I'm not going to do that on this show necessarily, but
go right ahead. I was traumatized by 2012.
Everybody had 2012 PTSD, and as I kept beseeching people, look, I was not telling you not to go out and vote. I wasn't telling you to take your foot off the pedal by no means. But if it's a winning side and you know you're on the winning side and you can see the evidence you're on the winning side, it helps motivate people to turn out because people want to be part of a winning team. It happens all the time. And if you looked at the data, and that's all I was doing, compared to 2012, we had feels and we had vibes. We had internal polling from the Republican side that we thought we were going to win, and we just assumed that the American people were so mad at Obamacare being jammed down that we thought the election was in the bag. But we didn't have any hard data to look at. We didn't have early voting data. We didn't have all the metrics underlying the polling to be able to see where the country actually was. Compare that to this time, and there was scads, yards and yards of actual data, early voting trends. It was not hard to see where this was going, and the math is the math. It was everything that happened pretty much is kind of what I said was going to happen, because there was no other way for it to be anything but that.
And you can prove this by listening to yesterday's Dwayne World.
Yes.
Now, I want to ask a couple of questions. I noticed Philip Klein has posted the following. Looks like Gen X delivered the White House to Trump, because people aged 45 to 64 voted for Trump 53 to 45%.
Right.
Seniors, 65 or older, voted, because they split 50-49. 30 to 44 favored Trump. Favored Harris 51 to 46%, and the 18 to 29-year-old 55 to 42. You know, the Gen Xers are the parents of children who didn't go to school for 2 years.
Right. And
that is the COVID effect.
That's the COVID effect. And, you know, the people in their 40s that you mentioned, that first cohort that Trump won so easily, they're the homeowners. They're the ones that are the middle-class people that are trying to eke out a living, and things are so gosh darn hard to afford these days that they can't do another 4 years of this.
And so let me play some of the exit polling. Now, exit polls are not useful for predictions, and we told you that yesterday. They're used for an analysis. David Chalian is a very smart guy who is over at CNN. I've known him for a long time, talking about Latinos and Trump, cut number 6.
Donald Trump is winning the Latino vote in Michigan with 60% of the vote. Harris, 35% of the vote. That's a 25% advantage for Trump among Latinos. That is a big change when Biden won Latinos in Michigan by 11 points 4 years ago. That's a 36-point swing in the margin.
That's such an extraordinary swing. Let's go to cut number 3. Chris Wallace stunned observers early. And again, I don't like exit polling on which to base feelings, because it can be very wrong, as it was in 2004 when I anchored election night for Salem Radio Network before we became the Salem News Channel. And you may be watching on the Salem News Channel right now. We're on. Here's Chris Wallace explaining early in the evening what was happening. Cut number 3.
This time it's exactly even. Harris won women by 10 points. Trump won men by 10 points. But the one that just stands out, sort of a flashing light, Jake, Hispanics. Biden won Hispanics 4 years ago by 32 points. As of tonight, Harris has won Hispanics by 8 points.
Can I just add one other thing about what this Georgia projection means? What it means is that she's got to win Pennsylvania. If she doesn't win Pennsylvania, it's over.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's over, and this was early. I have to say about no one in particular and everyone in general. Overly invested in your own echo chamber means you are indifferent to what is going on. A lot of people thought that an insult comics joke of Puerto Rico would change a Puerto Rican American's vote. That is so absolutely condescending towards a voter. Churchill said, trust the people. Trust the people. They know what is in their best interest. And sometimes it's in their interest, as we saw in the United Kingdom, to throw the conservatives out, exile the Tory and bring the Labour in. And sometimes it is in their interest to bring in the conservatives and throw out the left, as we saw last night. Trust the people. They are very smart. And I don't want people to miss this. Everyone talks to each other in their own bubbles. Especially, I'm in the Beltway. I live on the Acela some weeks. I go back and forth to New York, and I've been doing this forever, and then I go out to California, and I get progressive bubbles there. Only when I go to Maine do I actually meet normal people, and normal people are different than other people in the Beltway. And the Beltway is so deeply diseased, and legacy media is so deeply diseased. The one thing I object to, I have great admiration for Van Jones, but I do not have admiration for this statement, cut number 14.
I'm thinking about the people who are not a part of anybody's elite who are hurting tonight. There are African-American women who know a little bit about being talked down to, and know a little bit about having their economic dreams crushed, who tried to dream a big dream over the past couple of months. And tonight they're trading in a lot of hope for a lot of hurt. And they were hoping that maybe this time, one of their own could be seen as worthy. And once again, they're facing rejection. And that hurts. They thought tomorrow morning they're going to walk out with their shoulders back a little bit, maybe able to breathe for the first time and feel like they belong someplace. They did everything that they knew how to do. And it's going to be harder than it should be tomorrow.
I understand Van speaks from the heart. America is not a racist nation. America voted for Donald Trump, and it did not vote against Kamala Harris because she is a woman, black, or South Asian. We voted for Donald Trump because he's prepared to be the commander-in-chief in a dangerous world and to restore economic growth by cutting regulation and getting out of our lives and not killing Peanut and not leaving the border wide open. They voted against Kamala Harris. She never won a vote. She never won a vote. She was selected. And she was a bad candidate. Might be a nice person. I do not know her. It is important that we understand the United States is not racist. The United States is not sexist. The United States is a land of great opportunity, and there will be a woman president. It may be a Republican first. I don't know when it's going to happen, probably in my lifetime. But it's going to happen after you win primaries and you establish yourself as a serious person of political gravitas who will do any interview anywhere, anytime with anyone about any subject. Because that's what presidents have to do. They have to lead from the center of the country with competence and calm, something that Kamala did not do. Wish the vice president well. But I wish President-elect Trump all the momentum in the world. Dave McCormick, Republican Senate candidate in Pennsylvania, currently has 49.2% of the vote, and Bob Casey has 48.3% of the vote. That works out to about a 70,000 vote lead for Dave McCormick, and more than 95% of the vote is counted. It's not a lock. It's a good sign, but it's not a lock. Bernie Moreno has won, but no one's called Pennsylvania for McCormick. Mike Rogers in Michigan has got 48.64% to Elisa Slotkin's 48.38%, which is a lead of 14,000 votes, 95% of the vote in. It's a lead. Rather have a lead than be behind. Because if you look over at Wisconsin, Eric Hovde is behind by about 25,000 votes, with more than 95% of the vote counted. So thus far, in the really tight blue wall states, Donald Trump has won them all. But Eric Hovde is behind. Dave McCormick in Pennsylvania is up. Mike Rogers is up in Michigan. Eric Hovde is down in Wisconsin. We'll keep you throughout the morning. It may be late tonight before this is all counted. There may be mandatory recounts. Sam Brown remains viable and ahead in Nevada, and that's going to take forever to count. Dwayne, did you get a look at the numbers for Captain Sam Brown in Nevada? I'm not sure what that one is, and I don't know about Terry.
In Nevada, Sam Brown with, let me pull it up real quick, with 84% of the vote in, Sam Brown has 599.5 or 47.3. Jackie Rosen's at 598.6. So that's a 900 vote lead.
All right, so that's probably going to go to Jackie Rosen. And Arizona,
Arizona is 59% in, and all of a sudden that was about a 6-point spread. It's now a 2-point spread. Kerry Lake is behind by 50,000 votes.
So unlikely. So if I had to say right now, I would guess that the Republicans are going to have a 54 vote.
That's the
Senate
most
majority.
likely outcome yet.
You get McCormick and you get Rogers and you add them into Bernie Moreno and Jim Justice
And
Tim Sheehy, and that's a 5-vote swing and a comfortable Republican majority.
And a
we
very
don't know
good
about
night.
the House, and we won't know about the House until late tonight. We do know Donald Trump has won. And my special podcast today is simply pop the champagne and breathe a sigh of relief. Now, this is just personal. I was so fraught yesterday because presidential elections are, to me, about national security and being a commander-in-chief. They are secondarily about leading the country on domestic issues. The House and the Senate can work out domestic issues. They should pass laws. The Chevron doctrine's been overturned. But the president does. The president is the commander-in-chief. And the president has to prepare the military, deploy the military, decide when military action is necessary, strike at our enemies, defend our borders. And I did not think, and I do not believe, that the vice president is ready to be president and commander-in-chief, and the staff around her scared me. Just scared me. They are disciples of a theory of international security that I think is very closely tied to the appeasement theory of the 30s when it comes to Iran. I do not think they are friends of Israel in the way that Donald Trump has been and will be. And I listened to podcasts yesterday. I listened to the Ruthless podcast, the Getting Hammered podcast, the Times of Israel podcast, and the Commentary podcast. And they were all long and they were all good, and they got me 10 miles of walking. Just walk. Also went to Mass. It's the Octave of All Souls, so I got my Mass in. And I'm here to tell you, it's a wonderful thing to listen to pros like the Ruthless podcast, listen to funny and informed people like Vic Mattis and Mary Catherine Ham on Getting Hammered. The Commentary pod may be the equal of any podcast I've ever heard yesterday for breadth, depth, humor, insight, discussions of difficult issues. Now, it is a very moderate Republican point of view, a neocon point of view. It's not a Midwestern conservative like I am point of view, but it's so smart. And then today, people will be doing postmortems, and they're going to look a lot at the Latino vote and the black male vote, and they're going to look at the Jewish vote. I want to close with this. 43% of the Jewish vote in Florida went for Donald Trump. 38% of the Jewish vote went for Donald Trump, I believe, in Michigan or Pennsylvania, and 42% of the Jewish vote going for Donald Trump in Michigan. That's huge. In Israel, 66% of all Israelis, including Arabs and Druze, wanted Donald Trump to win, that he was better for Israel. 72% of Israeli Jews wanted Donald Trump to win because he's better for Israel. I think this is one of the big stories, is that Kamala Harris did not close the deal with a traditional Democratic voting bloc because she cannot bring herself to say, we not only will defend the right of Israel to defend itself, we're going to arm them to the teeth so that they can take out Iran's nuclear sites, and we're going to help them. I also believe if she'd picked Josh Shapiro, she would have won Pennsylvania. But she didn't pick Josh Shapiro because he's Jewish. Never make that mistake again, America. Never give in to the anti-Semites. I'm Hugh Hewitt. The regular show begins. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned to the Hugh Hewitt Show. Morning glory, America. Pop the champagne. Donald Trump is president-elect again. And he has a Republican Senate majority in the bag, and it may grow bigger over the course of the morning. We won't know about the House for days, but I'll bring you all the current news, late-breaking developments. I was just looking up, because this is the most important thing to say this morning of Donald Trump's re-election, his return to the White House. He is president-elect. If you've just woken up and you somehow managed to get to sleep, Donald Trump has won a thumping big win. He has won at least Pennsylvania. It looks like Wisconsin and maybe Michigan as well. He's going to win Nevada, and he's going to win all 7 swing states. Big, sweeping, thumping win. I hope, as he prepares his second inaugural address, he looks back to Lincoln's first inaugural address. We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. The mystic chords of memory will swell when again touched, as surely they will be by the better angels of our nature. Now, a lot of us are doing a tap dance because we are relieved. And many of us, including me, are very angry at elite media and the blue bubble for projecting onto you their wish casting and therefore surprising you about the result. The polling was bad again. I know that Ann Selzer is a very respected professional, and sometimes you just get a poll wrong, but her Iowa poll misled many people in the same way that the ABC Washington Post poll in 2020 misled many people about Wisconsin. That poll said Joe Biden would win Wisconsin in 2020 by 17 points, and Joe Biden won by 0.6%. The Selzer poll had Kamala Harris winning Iowa by 4 points. I don't know how much she lost it by, but it was a blowout for Donald Trump. And I don't think anyone saw Bernie Moreno winning handily. He did. The United States Senate is going to be at least 52-48 Republican because Republicans have won in Ohio, taking a seat away from Sherrod Brown. In Montana, Tim Sheehy taking a seat away from John Tester. And in West Virginia, where Jim Justice took the seat of the retiring Joe Manchin. Dave McCormick is ahead in Pennsylvania, but always be prepared to lose a close race where the 95% of the vote is in and you're only ahead by 14,000 votes. Eric Hovde is behind by double that amount in Wisconsin. I don't know what's still outstanding, but more than 95% of the vote is in. Mike Rogers is ahead in Michigan by a few thousand votes with 95% of the vote in, but that could change as well. Sam Brown is up by 800 votes, and there's a lot of Clark County to come in, so I'm not very optimistic about that. Kerry Lake is 2% down in Arizona. Possible, unlikely. So I tell you the facts, and the facts will change, and throughout the day I will bring you the facts. But I do want to play for you again in case you did not wake up for the first hour this morning. I started an hour early. Donald Trump won Michigan 51% to 47%. Donald Trump won Wisconsin 51.2% to 47.4%. He has won Pennsylvania 50.8% to 48.2%. He won Georgia by 50.8% to 48.5%. He won Arizona by 50.8% to 48.3%. He won Nevada by 51% to 46.8%. Now, all of the polls were off by at least 1.5 points, sometimes 5 points. The prediction, the models were all wrong. They cannot get the Trump voter to talk to them. They can't do it. We do know from exit polling, and that's only as good as the exit pollers are, that Donald Trump won a majority of Latino men. He won a quarter of black men. He won overwhelmingly in rural, and he won large numbers of Jews who had never voted for him before. And it's an amazing, amazing thing. We will not know the House. There are a couple of good signs in the House. A couple of seats have flipped from D to R, but we have to wait for the California dreaming. That'll be 2 weeks before we know some of these elections out there, because it's. I don't know why everyone can't be like California. I mean, Florida. You don't want to be like California. God forbid. Florida is done, packed, fixed, done, reported by 9 o'clock at night, East Coast time. Now, that would mean midnight for California. Give them 3 hours. But why? It's a bigger state. But it prefers a nightmarish system, and they choose a nightmarish system, and it reduces electoral credibility, even though there's no cheating. There's no allegation of cheating. Donald Trump may win, and in fact, looks like he is going to win the popular vote. I state, again, it doesn't matter except for bragging rights. Okay, the constitutional majority is mediated by the Electoral College because we are a constitutional republic, and we do not vote directly on candidates for president. We vote through the Electoral College. And if any Democrat starts talking about faithless elector, they ought to just be shunned. Just shun them. It is time for normalcy in America and to get serious about our international threats, and they are many and growing. I do want to play for you Donald Trump's victory speech last night. This is Donald Trump, the first few minutes of his victory speech hours ago, cut number 9.
Thank you very much. Wow. Well, I want to thank you all very much. This is great. These are our friends. We have thousands of friends in this incredible movement. This was a movement like nobody's ever seen before. And frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country, and maybe beyond. And now it's going to reach a new level of importance because we're going to help our country heal. We're going to help our country heal. We have a country that needs help, and it needs help very badly. We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country. And we made history for a reason tonight, and the reason is going to be just that. We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy? But it's a political victory that our country has never seen before, nothing like this. I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president. And to every citizen, I will fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day, I will be fighting for you, and with every breath in my body, I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to have. This is a magnificent victory for the American people that will allow us to make America great again. And in addition to having won the battleground states of North Carolina, I love these places, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, we are now winning in Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, and Alaska, which would result in us carrying at least 315 electoral votes. But it's much easier doing what the networks did or whoever called it, because there was no other path. There was no other path to victory. We also have won the popular vote. That was great. Very proud of that. Thank you.
I got to tell you, so many things went into his victory, but it's primarily the economy sucks. All right, the economy is terrible, and I'll bring you a market update. They're going to have a big day on the market today. I don't know what gold has done. I'll check during the break. But the economy is terrible, and that's what drove this. And we want a border. We want the wall. We want deportation of violent people. We want regularization of people willing to work. America thrives with great immigrants, and Donald Trump will get it done. And they've got a majority. Please give us a House majority so we can fix things. Please give us a House majority so we can fix things. I don't want anything radical, but we got to fix the border. We got to regularize people. We got to regain our military strength. Number one priority, military rebuild. Number one, because we got very serious enemies who want to kill us. And we've got a commander-in-chief who knows how to do it. He needs a SecDef who will be strong and purposeful and competent. I don't know who it's going to be. I'm sure it will be good. Joined by Matthew Continetti. Matt is a fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, a columnist for the Washington Free Beacon. He's also the Washington columnist for Commentary Magazine and a regular contributor to the Commentary podcast. Good morning, Matt. I want to begin by telling you thank you for a podcast yesterday, the equal of any I have ever heard. I sent a MASH note to John Podhoretz, your editor-in-chief, because the election day is the longest day of all, and you guys went long, and I just thought it was a brilliant compilation of insight, takeaways, predictions, conversation, and then the John Williams recommendation at the end. Having said all that, what do you think about everything we know this morning?
Well, I think it's a pretty remarkable morning. The first thing is we know the winner. The networks calling and the AP calling the election for Donald Trump around 5:30 this morning. That is sooner than I think many people expected. We don't have to go through the long recounts and the lawfare over election results. It's also remarkable that Donald Trump is on track to win the popular vote. If that happens, Hugh, it'll be the first time that a Republican has won the popular vote in a generation. And so when you look at what's happened over the last 24 hours in these election results, remarkable is the word. It's not only the fact that Donald Trump has come back after kind of being written off as a political artifact after January 2021 to now winning a second non-consecutive term for president, bringing in a Republican Senate with we don't know the exact number of new Republican senators, but we have the potential to reach the highest number of Republican senators, certainly in the 21st century, and maybe even longer than that. The House will take a little bit longer to figure out, but it looks pretty good for the GOP. So I just think it's an incredible testament to Donald Trump's willpower, tenacity, vision, and also, of course, a negative reflection on the Biden legacy and the Harris campaign.
Now, Matt, I want to thank Abe Greenwald as well, and everyone, actually. You all had contempt for extreme rhetoric of consequences that, the last time we'll ever vote, et cetera. But I think Abe is right in his 180 that some people on the left are positively going to be distraught and distressed to the point of maybe not being able to deal with this. Do you think that's true, or is it so actually massive that they might look inward and reflect that their blue bubble is just too thick?
Well, I don't think self-reflection is a quality of the left, Hugh. So I don't rate the chances of that happening very high. I will say that I'm here in New York City covering the election, and as the results were coming in and things started trending in Trump's direction, there was a pro-Hamas protest that broke out in Midtown. I could see more of that in the days ahead. I do think Antifa will return. Parts of the resistance will return. There will be aspects of the second Trump term that will resemble the first. On the other hand, when you look at the breadth and depth of the coalition that is returning Donald Trump to the White House after 4 years in absentia, I don't know how effective these campaigns, both activist and information campaigns by the left, will be. I mean, it's stunning, Hugh, to look at the results among Hispanic voters. I mean, Hispanic voters have closed the gap. They are now divided evenly between the parties. Trump seems to be doing better among Hispanics than George W. Bush in 2004. When you look at Black men giving about a quarter of the vote to Donald Trump, this is remarkable. Younger people, of course, which overlaps with the minority categories, also trending Republican. So I think that the left may have to, or at least the center left, may have to say, okay, let's take a breath before we go all in trying to stop Donald Trump and the MAGA agenda.
Matt, yesterday, and I can't recommend Commentary's podcast from yesterday strongly enough. It is the equal of any podcast I've ever listened to. You were feeling your way around different parts of the elephant, and I was saying, it's the family, it's the family, it's the family. Latino men, black men are trying to protect their families, both economically and culturally, at the same time that the country is working through the difficult process of abortion being decided by elected representatives. Florida rejected the rejection of their abortion law. Montana constitutionalized one. So it's a long process, but the political system is up to it. What I especially appreciated, as you pointed out, this election was fundamentally unserious on the subject of China, on the subject of Israel, on national security generally. There was hardly any conversation about the judiciary. And I blame elite media because, I jokingly posted on X, I tried, Matt. I only got 3 questions at one debate. They were all about China. But legacy media just doesn't care about national security, and we have to change that.
I do think you're right, Hugh. At the same time, I think this election is a death knell for legacy media. I mean, I really do. I mean, you look at the fact that confidence in the media has collapsed in recent years. When you look at the proliferation of different outlets, also the role that podcasts played in this election. Donald Trump had a strategy from the very beginning that he was going to reach out to new audiences, to younger men, to people who are not considered normal Republican voters through the medium of podcasts. He got that Joe Rogan endorsement at the last minute. He was going everywhere. His appearances early on at UFC matches, again, getting the reaction from the crowd, a very Hispanic audience for UFC and mixed martial arts. So I think you're absolutely right. The media needs to get its act together. I'm skeptical that it will, but in the long run, it won't matter as much because we're finding new ways to work around the media. And I'm just on Florida briefly. I mean, wow. I want RFK Jr. to figure out what's in the water in Florida because we need to get that all over the country. I mean, double digits, 1.5 million margin. People were talking that Rick Scott, the incumbent senator there, might have been threatened. No way, no how. And yes, a social conservative vote in Florida as well. Just to take a step back and think about 24 years ago, as a college student, I was staying up until 4 a.m. After election night because of the beginnings of the Florida recount that would last 6 weeks before the election was called. Here we had Florida results. Within an hour, someone was joking on X as the night went on that, just to pass the time, Florida had counted all of its votes again. Whatever's happening in Florida, I think we need more of it in the USA, and I think we'll get a little bit more of it now with Donald Trump and a Republican Senate.
Now, Matt, I want to pick up on the disintermediation of legacy media by the rise. For a long time, we've had talk radio was the first bridge from 1989 to about the rise of blogging in 2010. And we're still around on talk radio. And then blogging came along and Twitter came along, and then Elon took over Twitter and turned it into X. And now podcasting has come along. And I consumed yesterday in order Ruthless, Getting Hammered, Time to Israel podcast, Comfortably Smug, Walk 10 minutes. That's, for me, and I'm a news guy, about 6 hours of content, and it's by smart people who know what they're talking about. And I think there is a need for that, and I think it's going to ascend. It's going to disintermediate advertising. I don't know how many people know about Commentary Pod, but if I wanted to reach the center right in America, and I wanted to reach people who are national security, I'd buy every ad I could on the Commentary Pod, like I see Ruthless buying. Do you think there's an upper limit to that, or do you actually? I think, or let me phrase it differently. How quickly will legacy media collapse? And I mean actually collapse.
Well, I think there will be some institutions that are able to last, Hugh, because I think in this new media environment, advertising actually counts for less. And it's more about subscriptions and audience loyalty. And so the fact is, an institution like the New York Times has a lot of subscriptions and a lot of loyalty. Other institutions may not be so lucky. And so there will be a sorting out. But I think the real move here, the real shift is subscribing to voices you trust. It's not a top-down process. It's not a group of people here in New York saying, okay, this is the story of the day, and Walter Cronkite, that's what you're going to say on the evening news, and it will be in the New York Times next morning. Everybody in America will have to go off it. It's on the individual basis. It's on the basis of the communities you inhabit. And so that's going to be the new model. And I like this model because I think it adds to a proliferation of voices. It creates I think, a needed skepticism towards some of the messages we hear from formerly authoritative sources. And I think it also does offer economic opportunities for people who can attract their own audiences. I mean, again, just to talk about the remarkable aspects of this election, the fact that at the last rally, Megyn Kelly appeared alongside Donald Trump. And here's somebody who came from cable. I think started off very briefly in legacy media, but she came from cable. Then she went back to legacy media. Now she's a superstar through her podcast and YouTube channel. And I think that's going to be...
It's remarkable. I also think people need expertise. So when I need to know about Israel, especially, I go to Times of Israel, I go to commentary, and I want to come to the national security implications of the election last night. But how comfortable are you, quick guess, that President-elect Trump will turn to the Tom Cottons and the Michael Waltzes and the Mike Pompeos and the other Robert O'Briens and Rick Grinnells and John Ratcliffe's who have track records in national security and get them up and announced, because we live in a dangerous world?
I'm fairly confident. If this goes like 2016 did, Trump kind of dove into the transition process fairly early. If anything, this time it's a much smoother process. I think there have been a lot of tracks that have been happening, including with the official transition. And, one of the characteristics of this campaign, Hugh, I think one of the reasons that Donald Trump has won this decisive victory is he has had very good advisors. The Susie Wiles, Chris LaCivita team, they know what they are doing. They got Donald Trump crushing the opposition in the primary, and they followed the same strategy of going after younger, diverse audiences, and it paid off. So I trust them in the transition as well.
It will take us a while to get the full set of data on the Jewish American vote, but it looks like Donald Trump did very well, Matt. Very well. 43% of the Jewish vote in Florida and in the Philly exurbs, it looks pretty good. What does that portend for America returning as a full-throated ally of the State of Israel?
Well, I think it portends good things. I mean, Donald Trump made no secret of his support for Israel throughout this campaign. He has on the record saying to Bibi Netanyahu that to finish the war, to do what needs to be done to get the war resolved. He also do what needs to be done regarding Iran. And I think the next couple months, even in the transition, Iran will become very important. As it has claimed that it's going to attack Israel for the third time. We know that Donald Trump will be on Israel's side should that attack occur. So, the Jewish vote, of course, it's a small group with a lot of different gradations. And what we see, I think, in some of these exit polls is that Jewish voters who put Israel at the top of their priorities, who have been alarmed at the rise of anti-Semitism in the United States, they have shifted toward Donald Trump. Jewish voters who are more observant in their religious practices, Orthodox Jewish voters, for example, they shifted toward Trump. That doesn't mean that all American Jews supported Trump, far from it. But when you look at those two categories, it's a clear move that you can see in Florida, you can see in Pennsylvania, you can see in New York. I mean, the New York result is amazing, Hugh. 10 points separating Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. The Bronx becoming a place where Donald Trump is outperforming Republicans in half a century or more. So yes, you can see it in specific locations among different types of Jewish voters who put Israel at the top of their concerns and who are also more observant in their religious practice.
Well, Matt, I look forward to today's commentary podcast. And again, I thank you for yesterday's effort and for the John Williams recommendation. I never got to it because I was overwhelmed by the election. But as soon as the fetching Mrs. Hewitt returns, she wants to wait and watch it. You guys did such a wonderful job selling that. You did a better job selling it. John Podhoretz really does know everything, doesn't he? It's kind of
He does.
astonishing how much he knows.
It can be hard to work for him. Yes,
It's very
exactly, 'cause he
annoying,
knows it
actually, to
all.
know how little I know compared to John. Oh, well, he's done 60 scores and 55 Gilligan's Island. I was blown away. Matt Continetti, follow him at Continetti on X and follow me in the next segment. Thank you, Matt. If you were watching Fox News last night, you saw my next guest, Mary Catherine Ham, host of Getting Hammered, which she goes with Vic Mattis. Mary Catherine, I am amazed you're here because you worked late last night. You worked early yesterday morning, and I am amazed that you are here. But I want to begin with just a note. I have no idea what goes on Saved by the Bell. I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm too old for Saved by the Bell. My kids watch Saved by the Bell. So your Saved by the Bell references yesterday were the only thing I didn't get in an otherwise wonderful podcast. How do you react to the fact that Donald Trump has won re-election as president of the United States?
I mean, just a stunning and impressive political comeback on all fronts. And look, some of it was because she failed. Some of it was because Biden failed, right? I think a lot of his ability to make this comeback came from the fact that those policies were not working, that people were hurting. It also came from, I want to congratulate the Donald Trump team for seeing things and building a new coalition and making arguments to minority voters, even in urban areas where they might not necessarily have had the most efficient gains in electoral college votes, but they made arguments to those voters that worked, right? They reached out to constituencies that I've been saying Republicans should reach out to for years. But this is one of my things as a person who did not support Donald Trump in 2015 or 2016 and 20, is to say he made changes in the Republican Party that I wanted made, but I didn't know how to make. And somewhat counterintuitively, he made them in sometimes outrageous ways, which is really messing with many people on TV right now. I was watching a little Morning Joe this morning. And
don't do that. That must be a nightmare.
Well, this part's important, I think, because I tweeted last night, this is a you're full of it electorate. And the people that they're saying you're full of it to are the people who had all these requirements of minority voters, who had all these requirements of suburban women voters, who said you can't be a woman, you can't be a black person, you can't be a proper Latino or Latinx unless you do these things as Democrats say, unless you emote about the threat of Donald Trump in the same way we do. And those groups said, you know what? I don't have to do those things. I feel like I've been sold a bill of goods. And I think the first place I saw this last night was in Loudoun County, Virginia, which Virginia was much closer than it should have been. Thank you to Youngkin's team and his operation for making it look like that. Loudoun County, Virginia is peak wine mom county, affluent, left-leaning, many of them federal workers. But they had been lied to during COVID by an aggressive, nasty school board about gender issues and school closings and treated very badly and mobilized by Youngkin. Everything they were told was bunk. They were told they were conspiracy theorists, and all these women suddenly got mobilized on the other side. Suddenly they were willing to pull the lever for a Republican, or some of those soft Republicans went back to the Republican Party. And I think they were prepared in this moment to say, do I really still believe everything they tell me about Donald Trump? Or am I willing to
I really cannot wait to hear the next Getting Hammered, because I want to know if you feel that COVID accountability has been expressed, because I've been chopping some crosstabs, and the Gen Xers went for Donald Trump bigly, and the Gen Xers are parents, and it's not just wine moms, it's wine dads, and they're mad still, and they finally got a chance. Do you think maybe you got some accountability that you have almost routinely expressed on Getting Hammered, that you want people to go back and look and see what they did to the kids?
Yeah, I do think that there was some of that running through here, and that's why I call it you're full of it vote, because it wasn't just that. It was a lot of things. It was the media narrative in general. It was being lectured all the time. It was being condescended to. A lot of the women in my circles, the approach from Harris was, here's Liz Cheney, don't you love abortion? That wasn't enough. And a lot of the women in my circles who are soft Republicans who haven't liked Trump in the past, who nonetheless voted for him this time, said that's not enough for me. That's not a pitch for my vote. You haven't tried. And I think on top of being ticked off about several years of a lot of things the media and a lot of things the official narrative got wrong, um, people just wanted something different. And they're finished listening.
Now, Mary Catherine, we got to go to break. Can you stay with me for 5 more minutes? Because I want to peek inside your night last night. It looks like you're at breakfast. Are you in a breakfast room somewhere?
No, I'm just in my hotel room with my rickety computer.
Okay, well, I'll start this. I'll frame the question. When and how did you know that it was over? Because I went to bed early because I had to do an hour early. So I was up at 3 a.m. this morning to go through the results. And I kind of knew that Trump had won, but I was, sleepy, foggy headed. And when I got down and started to really get the caffeine, it dawned on me. And I would like to know on the Fox set where you were working with Guy Benson and the Fox friends and everybody, when it came to your attention that he had won it. This is a historic day. I mean, you'll be telling your grandkids about this because this doesn't happen. It's like 1980 is for me. I think 2024 might be for you. Mary Catherine, you were up in New York yesterday. I loved your conversation about the Acela dining car yesterday. I didn't know that. No Acela has ever had anything good to eat in my life. But you were in peak, removed from the normies, and you're a normie.
For sure.
So tell me, when did the set recognize Trump was winning?
So I think Guy Benson and I were on set together and maybe more willing to notice it than our Democratic counterparts, although they were feeling sort of gloomy. But I think around 9 o'clock, not that I didn't know he was going to win it, but around 9 o'clock, we started to get information like Baldwin County in Georgia, which is the county seat is Milledgeville. That's a county that went like 1% for Hillary and Biden, plus 1% for Hillary and Biden. And for Trump to win it would have signaled that Georgia was looking very good for him. Importantly, Baldwin County is 40% black. And I don't know what it ended up being, but watching him flip Baldwin County made me think, now is there something going on here that's beyond a good governor and a good operation on the ground? And some of the exit polls suggested, yes, with black voters, there might be something there, particularly black men. Around that same time, we started to get the Loudoun County information and the Virginia information. And I just thought, if she doesn't see among the black population the adherence that she needs, and she doesn't see a leftward lurch in the suburbs, I don't know how she does this. And I don't believe that the blue wall operates so differently from the South that she pulls this out.
All right, last question has to do. 9 o'clock, that's early. Last question has to do what it is. I am uncomfortable with the term, the trans issue, because I'm very sympathetic to families who are dealing with gender dysphoria, as you are. I know you are. And I don't want to dismiss their concerns about cruelty towards their children or dismissiveness of their concerns. So I don't know how to categorize it, but I'll say the speed of social change. Do you think the speed of social change has something to do with this election?
Yes, I think there's something there. And let's use Loudoun County as a result, because I actually got into an argument with someone last night about this. And I can say gender issues maybe in schools. This, of course, so this also layers onto COVID, right? In Loudoun County, you had this horrible situation where there was an assault in a bathroom. It came to be known eventually that the school board had hidden it, the school had hidden it, and one of the reasons they had hidden it is because the kid who did the perpetrator was maybe gender fluid, was wearing a skirt, and they had this regulation coming up that would have been a trans bathroom issue on the school board, and they didn't think that the assault and dealing with it, frankly, would serve that social movement, right? Parents got upset about this, particularly the parent of the child who was assaulted. And he came to the board and wanted to talk to them about it. And when he got riled up about the fact that his child had been assaulted, the board had him arrested. He was arrested, the father of the child who was assaulted and lied to. That is just it's an outlier, but it is an encapsulation of how school boards were treating parents when they raised extremely reasonable objections to the behavior of these school boards. And I think something like gender politics is something that school boards are so committed to in some cases, so far out over their skis compared to parents. Things like notification of the fact that a child might be socially transitioning, that it goes beyond compassion for families that are having gender dysphoria issues and children who are experiencing this. It goes beyond offering a safe place to them, and it turns into bullying. And I think people were very sick of being bullied and lectured when they are just asking for simple things.
That is so well put. And bullying by legacy media of everybody has also reached a breaking point. I don't know if anyone did crosstabs on, does your opinion of the media have anything to do with your vote? But I wish they did, because I think it does. Last question to you. Do you think it does?
I think it does. I think when you're told things that aren't true this often, and then in the real world you see that they're not true, COVID took away so much public trust, so much trust in public health, so much trust in local school boards for these reasons. We joke that, a conspiracy theory is just a spoiler alert, and it's not always true, but it's true pretty frequently. And I certainly think the narrative of this election is yet another example where once people have voted, they look around and they go, yeah, I know I didn't believe you guys, and you didn't get it right once again. And the question for Democrats and for media, but I repeat myself, is whether they will look at all those voters, including non-white voters, and say, and women voters, and say, it's you that's the problem. You're still racist and sexist. And I bet you that's what they're going to do.
Pretty sure they're going to do that at some outlets, not at those that want to survive. Mary Catherine Ham can be followed on X at MK Hammer. Go get Getting Hammered, your morning show for any time in the day. And the Fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I both listened to it as she was driving down to take care of grandchildren yesterday. We talked about it and we laughed through it, but we just don't know anything about Saved by the Bell, Mary Catherine. So there, your older people just need better framing, more context. Thank you so much. Safe travel home today.
All right, bye.